Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're going to be playing the new Banished seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which, as soon as we select our hand for the starting round, our entire deck gets banished. That means shorter rounds, and a few specific cards that suddenly become far more powerful. Today we're going to be playing the Banished meta deck that just got significantly stronger, so let's go check out the deck. So today we're going to be playing a new and improved version of the Banished meta deck, using Nilfgaard and Imposter as our leader ability. And the reason why this deck was so strong to begin with was because it had cards like Tibor that normally would get weakened by the cards in the opposing deck. However, with no cards in the opposing deck, suddenly it's just a simple 13 power card for just 9 provisions. And the biggest improvement is actually coming from Imperial Golem, which just got buffed from an 11 to a 12 and 7 provisions down to 6. And so with that buff, and a few other smaller ones, this deck now has 3 additional provisions, which means we can load up on even more powerful cards. And overall, those cards give us a fantastic combination of poison, lock, removal, and just slamming down a lot of points. So now I'll flip through the deck here to show you what we have, and you may notice that even the top card in our deck only costs 9 provisions, and you'll see why in just a second. But Yennefer's Invocation is quite helpful because it is just outright removal in this seasonal event. And Cavalry is here to create a copy of our opponent's strongest unit, and also we have enough poison to remove 1 or potentially even 2 of our opponent's biggest units. Then Tibor, like I said, because our opponent won't have a deck, they won't summon any additional units, so this is just a simple 13-point card with no setup needed. And then Ciri Nova is the reason why we don't have any cards that are above 9 provisions, because getting Resilience on an 8 power card is huge when we only have 10 cards to start out with, and with no deck to draw cards from at the beginning of round 2 or round 3, that means her Resilience could give us card advantage for the rest of the match. Then Eskel Pathfinder is a good way to start off a round as one of our higher scoring units. Vilgefortz, again, because our opponent doesn't have any cards in their deck, it is just outright removal with no downside. Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin is great against Nilfgaard and monsters, 2 of the most common factions in this event, assuming that they have some really tall units. And a Henrietta is useful to steal our opponent's leader ability, which is usually worth a fair number of points as well. Then Idarran we can combine with our leader ability to create additional copies of the card that we steal, and can also be combined with Cavalry as well. Then Eyck is another form of removal, assuming that, again, our opponent likely has some tall units, since that is particularly common in this seasonal event. Then Serrit for some additional damage, and as you can probably imagine, we'll see Auckes later on. Then Moorlehem Cupbearer is a potential additional source of poison, however, he is also our only potential source of purification, so be careful before you commit him for that reason. Then Imperial Golem, arguably the best card in this deck, because since our opponent doesn't have any cards in their deck, it is just simply a 12 power for 6 provisions card with no setup, which is ridiculous. Then Auckes, like I was saying, to give us additional lock, or if we have Serrit in our hand, a ton of additional lock. Vanhemar, which we can use to destroy a card that we lock, either from Auckes or our leader ability, so we have at least 1 guaranteed source of lock. Then Rico is another card that is here in case our opponent plays some tall units. That way we can have a tall unit of our own. Then Adrenaline Rush, because rounds tend to be quite short, it should be fairly easy to have situations in which we can use this card, and it is 8 points, which is certainly not bad. Then Rot Tosser for additional sources of poison. And Alba Armored Cavalry for additional sources of lock. Then Ard Feainn Tortoise is another card that got buffed, dropped down from 5 provisions to just 4, so it's a decent late round point slam. Then the Nauzicaa Sergeant is almost like a budget version of Eskel, because we have so many cards with deploy abilities, this is likely to get boosted very quickly and easily. So there's a look at the deck, and overall it is very well rounded. We have a great combination of putting up points, locking opposing units, poisoning opponent's units, destroying opposing units, making this deck the clear meta for this seasonal event. Now let's go try it out. Okay, so going against monsters here, and they'll go first. Okay, and we have Henrietta, which I'm not sure is all that useful when they're using Fruits of Ysgith. Cavalry is great. We do have both Auckes and Serrit, so that's a nice combo. And I'm thinking Rico could be quite effective against monsters in particular. We have enough poison to at least get rid of 1 unit if needed. We also have Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, which, assuming they have some tall units, could be quite helpful as well. Removal with Yennefer. I think we get rid of maybe the Tortoise. And Vilgefortz is also quite good. I think we might stick with this here. So there you see, as soon as we finish the mulligan phase, both of our decks get completely banished. Okay, so we'll use Fruits of Ysgith. And does that mean we're looking at Thrive here? Ooh, interesting, okay. It's a quick and easy way to get 10 points here. That being said, that's why I was saying, you know, I do like having Rico in our hand, and we could even consider using Imposter here to steal Pugo, but I imagine they will have other tall units, so we might want to save this in case we need it more in round 2 or round 3. Let's go with just Rico here in that case. Okay, so Intriga Larva, this is interesting, because when they first played Fruits of Ysgith, I was wondering, are they Thrive? And if so, do you have enough time to trigger that? Or are you just going to be stuck with low-power units? So I think what we do here is, what if we just go Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin? That will lower the power of whatever their strongest unit is in their hand. Okay, and Griffin is powerful. In fact, this did, I believe, just get buffed. And so it seems like their Fruits of Ysgith they're basically just going to use to sacrifice a 1-power card rather than being full-blown Thrive. And we could use Auckes here to lock both the Intriga Larvas, and that's not a bad idea. I think we do go for that. It does make me a little nervous because, as you see here, they have still outscored us. And so there's a decent chance they may pass here. No, they're still going, though. We probably do prefer that. They're going with more Thrive, okay. And given how they have a pretty large lead here, I think we either pass or we do something to steal or create a copy of Pugo here. In which case, Davrin is tempting. I think we go that route. Because after we take the damage from this bleed, we'll be tied at 30 apiece. And we could then follow up with some poison to actually take this out. Going Wild Hunt Rider, and unfortunately we are tied for dominance here. They would get the other Wild Hunt Rider out of their deck. Then again, they don't have a deck. So that means if we go with Serrit here and damage the Griffin, then we will, after we take damage from this bleed, be tied at 34 here. And they're still going. And so the Beast is exactly the type of card that is tempting with our leader ability, shutting it down and creating a copy, and it does have some long-term value. And especially since we do have Anna Henrietta here, I know I was saying I'm not a huge fan of Fruits of Ysgith with this deck, but that may still be worth doing. So let's go for it here, because I think otherwise this beast is going to get out of control. And because we don't have a lot of poison remaining, I think we probably do go with Rot Tosser here. And let's put it between these two units. And that means that this is going to be fairly tough now for our opponent to catch up to us, unless they commit a lot in round 1. But they are still playing here. They're going with the Kikimor Worker. And that does trigger their Thrives. But here's the interesting thing. If we pass here, the Beast is not the highest unit, so we'll get boosted by 2. That means we'll be tied at 50, and they realize it, and so they forfeit. That was a mistake that, because they weren't going to draw cards in between rounds, that would have been very difficult for them to recover. Alright, going against Nilfgaard here. And they'll go first. And we have Idarran plus our leader ability, which can be helpful, along with Cadaverin and other sources of poison here, so we should be able to remove a card with the poison, and destroy the card that we lock with our leader ability, using Vanhemar, and damage the strongest card with Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, which, if they are using cards like Imperial Golem, then that could be very effective here. I'm not sure we need this much poison. We could potentially remove 2 cards if we go all in on the poison, but our cards might get split between rounds, so I think we get rid of one of you, and probably get rid of a Sergeant as well. Okay, and they're going to go with their Defender to lead things off with. So that's a pretty aggressive move here at the beginning of round 1. So there are a few things we could do. We could remove it, we could poison it, which would take a couple of turns. We could play a tall card that at least keeps pace with it. Or we could just pass here and say, you sacrificed one of your best cards and now you can't use it in round 2 or round 3. I think let's try keeping pace with something like Eskel. And we'll try to save some of our removal here. Of course, presumably they have a big card they're looking to play behind that. And I was wondering if it was going to be Kahir. It is. So this is a throwback from the previous seasonal event, in which this combo was amazing. And I did consider putting Kahir in this deck, but I thought that Eskel was just going to be a little bit more consistent. And of course we could do something like remove this defender and then use our leader ability to lock and create a copy of Cahir, and that would be quite strong for round 1. And since we do have Henrietta to steal their leader ability, we would still be able to get a leader ability back, so that may be worth doing here. I think let's go for it, because that should really shut down their plan for round 1. And now they're going to seize Cahir, though. Okay. They are going to need to play a card. And it's Hefty Helga. That's a big one. They are definitely a tactics deck. They're definitely a tactics deck. Now they are, of course, using Helga. They're using Enslave. And they use their tactic there. And so they are going very hard in round 1. And I think we do pass here because although we could poison Cahir to remove him, that would take us a few turns to do, and then they could pass as soon as we get the first poison, and then we'd be forced to play the second one. It'd be a nasty situation, so I think we handle the round 1 loss here, but hold on to this 1 card advantage, because that's particularly important in this seasonal event. Yeah, and so they dry pass here, which is understandable, given how they know they're a card down, and they're not going to draw cards in between rounds, so that's going to stay a card down unless they dry pass. Let's go with either Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin or Henrietta here, because they have some carryover value. Actually, Henrietta, because she is a 3-point body rather than a 5-point body, is perhaps a little bit preferable, so let's go with her. And then, we'll pass here to take the round 2 win. And so we gained the Enslave ability, which can seize an enemy unit with 3 power or less, so it's not very high because, unfortunately, we don't have much in the way of tactics in our starting deck. So it potentially could seize something, but it may not be much of a factor here. So I think let's lead off with Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin, because once he gets his deploy ability off, there isn't much else that we need him to do, so we're okay with him getting locked or destroyed. And, okay, it turns out that that was their highest power card. And they have 5 tactic cards in their hand. They have 6 cards in their hands. That means almost everything here is a tactic. And given how we know this is one of their few units, I think we do start dishing out some poison here. And there's a chance they have something like Treason to deal damage to adjacent units, or Assassination, in which case we actually would have units next to each other. Or Coded Weapons. This is an interesting one. It's basically just pure 5 damage, and they can't actually add cards to the top of our deck. So now I think we try going with Idarran here, in hopes of setting up a Cadaverin on our next play to create an additional copy of the Elite. But this will, of course, be a very clear target for them to try to destroy. And they're going to do exactly that. Ooh, hold on just a second here. Hold on just a second. I see an opportunity for some good old-fashioned memes. Okay, now they're going to destroy a locked unit. We don't have any locked units, though. Actually, we're going to find ourselves in a similar situation here. And he would be a seize target. However, we actually don't have room to seize him, because our range row is full. So I'm actually not sure that's going to work here. Why don't we instead focus on destroying this Idarran with our poison before he gets a chance of spawning in additional units. Okay, Garrison, well, now he's getting boosted, so we can no longer seize him, but like I said, I actually don't think it would have done anything, because when we seize a unit, it moves to the opposite row, which would have been our range row, so there's no room for it to go. So I think we go with our Vanhemar here as just a throwaway. And then Bribery will play a card from our starting deck that could be dangerous, depending on what they get here. And it'll give them probably poison, or they could even purify their elite, I suppose. Now, they will likely destroy this Idarran here. So we now have room to seize, but nothing that we can seize, because we can only seize something with 3 or less power. In which case, I think we just play our Tortoise, and that's more or less all we can do here. So it all comes down to what this last card is. It's Battle Preparation. That is, I believe, a soldier. But it is not enough, so we will take the win. Alright, so going against Scoia'tael here. And they'll go first. Okay, so we have Ciri. That's definitely a big play there. Not sure Shilard Fitz-Oesterlin is going to be as good against Scoia'tael, so we might want to dump him. And then Henrietta, stealing Precision Strike might not be all that great either, because of course we don't have any Broccolon Sentinels in our deck. So I'm thinking we maybe get rid of you, and get rid of you. No, we didn't exactly get the best cards in exchange. Not a huge fan of getting all these Nauzicaa Sergeants. Half-Elf Hunter. It's an interesting one. Are they going to go Harmony here? I think what I'd like to do is lead off with Ciri and challenge them to keep pace with this, because they need to play an additional card to catch up to us, and we may pass after doing that, giving us functionally 2-card advantage. Okay, they're going to go with Pavko, which will eventually give them some damage, and yeah, they do use their tactic here. So they realize that they are potentially at risk of us passing here. We could go with Eyck and destroy Pavko. It will take a turn before we can do that, but that may be worth doing because I'm not sure how many 9-power cards they're going to have. I'm guessing they're going to be more of a damaging deck. So let's go for it. It's a little bit of a risk just because Eyck himself is only, of course, 3 power, so now we are behind them. Yeah, they will, in fact, destroy him altogether with Waylay. Then they use a round of their leader ability to get rid of the shield, and then hit Ciri with Pavko. She is down from an 8 to a 6 now. I mean, really, we just need some carryover from her. I think we do probably pass here, because our hand is not that strong. We got, to be honest, just about as bad a starting hand as you could get, so we are relying pretty heavily on this carryover to carry us. And they are opting to play additional cards here. It is a Pitfall Trap, and they just immediately spring it to deal the 6 damage, get rid of Ciri. And functionally, it doesn't make much of a difference. Either way, she gave us 1 additional card advantage. And so, of course, they're going to dry pass here. And so I think we probably go for Nauzicaa Sergeant, or even a Rot Tosser, just because we don't actually have enough poison to get rid of anything with this. To tell you what, I think this is probably the answer. Which means that we will take the round 2 win while maintaining 1 card advantage. Okay, and I think we lead off with the Nauzicaa Sergeant here. And another trap, which they will immediately trigger. There's not enough to actually destroy that Nauzicaa Sergeant, however, it is good setup for Precision Strike. Then again, it's not like they have Broccolon Sentinels in their deck that they can get out because, well, their deck doesn't exist here. So I think we just go with Nauzicaa Sergeant number 2. And if they want to make this exchange, then technically speaking, I mean, it's a 4 provision cost card for 5 provision cost card. So we're fine with them using all their removal on our weakest unit. Okay, stick a castle. Probably going to mean they're going for a Cat Witcher here. That it does mean. And I'm thinking this may be a decent target for our leader ability and Idarran, because it's early enough in the round that this will deal a reasonable amount of damage. So let's do that here. Let's make sure we spawn in an additional one in the melee row so that it damages this guy here. Then we'll lock you. Ooh, although that does mean that now Adrenaline Rush likely does not work unless they end up destroying one of these cards, which, to tell you the truth, is probably fairly likely indeed, so just want to be mindful of that. Okay, another trap. This one they will also immediately trigger. And it's not enough to get rid of this Cat Witcher. They will use their leader ability to get rid of the other Cat Witcher. And a Broccolon Sentinel, which they can use to destroy, presumably, this Cat Witcher. So that's well done. And now we do have easy setup for Adrenaline Rush, so you know what? Our wish did come true. Okay, then Gezros is absolutely going to be the unit that we lock here. Of course, would have also been a strong target for using our leader ability on. We don't have a lot of units to boost, though. So, why don't we do this? Okay, and Symbiosis, some damage. Probably not a huge factor, although does mean that they have a way of dealing damage to Ard Feainn Tortoise, so I think this is probably the card that we want to finish with, so that way they don't have the ability to answer. That means a 4-point Rico, which is a little bit disappointing, yes. But again, given how Scoia'tael probably doesn't have as high base power as monsters or Nilfgaard opponents, probably to be expected. So they'll hit Rico. And they have, ooh, interesting. I wonder if they had Eldain in their deck and they just didn't pull him. Because that, of course, would have been a decent setup there. Nonetheless, it is a decent point slam, but it is not enough for them to do better than this Ard Feainn Tortoise, so we'll take the win. Okay, so going against monsters here. And wait, this is a friend and one of the best seasonal event players, but I've never played them before. Okay, and we have some very nice cards here. Ciri Nova to give us resilience. Cadaver, poison, create a copy of a unit. Removal with Vilgefortz, and with Eyck. And with a combination of Rawtosser and Cadaver, we have just enough poison. Imperial Golem is also a huge point slam. We don't have Serrit to go with Auckes, though. Let's try swapping out the Sergeant. And Henrietta is decent for stealing Force of Nature. With no Serrit, I think we swap you out. And Adrenaline Rush can be okay, assuming we play that relatively early, when we have just one card out there. So let's start off with something like Eskel Pathfinder. And let's use our tactic on him, but he can't get locked. And this may even be the only card that we play in this round. Okay, they're going to go with some Thrive here. So I think what we do is we go with Adrenaline Rush. Gives us big points. And Thrive is strong, but of course it takes a while to build it up. So it's going to be rather difficult for them to do that here, especially if they are doubling down on the Thrive. So I think in that case, what if we just throw out Ciri Nova? Get that resilience going, and then we'll probably call it a round. Okay, they'll go with Noon Wraith, which is decent, because that will, of course, trigger all those Thrives. So that's a 10-point play. But I think we pass here, and force them to play one more card than us, and with our resilience, that should be very hard for them to come back from that card disadvantage. But they will try, and with Witch Apprentice here, they do have enough to trigger Sabbath. But they will also use their leader ability here to try to catch up to us more quickly. And so that they will do, but at what cost? They go a card down, leader ability down, and we still have resilience. And so that puts them in a really tough position here. They're going with the Cave Troll, which does make you wonder if perhaps something like Keltullus would still be a problem because we have more cards and already have a unit out there. So in that case, I think it may be worth using Vilgefortz here, just to play it a little bit safe. And if they do play Keltullus on their next turn, then we'll lose Vilgefortz, but we can then lock or poison or even destroy Keltullus, or whatever else they might have been trying to hide behind that defender. Okay, it's Karen Thier. Is this going to be a Cache, maybe? It is. Just not sure you have enough time to make all this Thrive work. Not to mention, we can lock said Cache and create a copy of it here, and then we could also create another copy of it by doing this. Now suddenly we're the ones doing all the Thrive, and that was fairly aggressive on our part. May not have necessarily been necessary for us to do that, but even after having done it, we still have a card advantage here, going into round 3. We still have card advantage, and that leader ability that we just used, we can get back, or at least seal theirs, using Henrietta. Perhaps the biggest downside is actually having used Cadaver means we no longer have enough poison to remove something. And they do have their original Cache still in effect here, although we have delayed them playing it by one additional turn, so they have far less setup this time round, and may not have enough time for that to do much. And so we know we don't have enough poison, but they don't know that, so I think we scare them a bit here. And they'll go with the Witch Apprentice, and this is what I mean. Do they have enough time for the Sabbath to kick in? It's also not a high enough unit to trigger Thrive. And so I think what we do here is let's put down Eyck. And I'm guessing they have at least one more big unit that they're relying on to trigger this Thrive, and so Eyck might be able to destroy that unit. It's a Noon Wraith, which, I mean, is big enough, at least to trigger the Thrive. It is not big enough for Eyck. So let's go with the Tortoise here. And their last card is Osrel, which, depending on what they consume, will likely trigger Thrive, but will be big enough for Eyck. Oh, clever. Clever. They go up to 8. So we cannot destroy with Eyck. However, we can, of course, still go with Imperial Golem here, which is enough already for us to take the lead, and we also have the leader ability that we stole from them. So throw down our Woodland Spirit here, and we will take the win. GG. So there's a look at a meta deck that just got even stronger for the new Banished seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. Let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions you'd like us to experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.